Oh, we haven't played anything from Tusk yet.
With Rumours selling so well, was it a lot of pressure put on the group?
The new album was called Tusk.
More edgy, more dirty.
But you don't want to die, neither do I.
Clearly, it was not what they were expecting.
Lindsay experiments with his styles in a way that nobody else ever done.
If you don't let me do it my way, I quit.
Most of Fleetwood Mac's songs are broken-hearted melodies.
But this frail creature is certainly not going to go down to Fleetwood Mac or anybody else.
Cost over $1 million to produce. Expensive retail price, 2 discs.
People can feel things not only through lyrics, but just through the atmosphere of the track.
Everything is done for us. Everything.
People are strong, people are weak, and that's the joy of having someone to bounce off. Find me the biggest brass sound that you can.
Maybe the public needed something like us at the time.
I'm just sick of 90% of the stuff I hear on the radio, and I think everyone else is too.
Shut your mouth! Talk about time!
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
Bryce here again, and we're diving back into side B of Tusk. We got 5 more tracks for you, from What Makes You Think You're the One all the way to Sisters of the Moon. And this will take us to the halfway point on Tusk. How are you feeling just in general, Jeff? This is your second coming to the studio, having heard the tracks. And I think I was messaging you earlier this week, and I have had it in my head that this side is easier to go down than the last side. But I also have listened to this album about 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So to me, it's all gravy, baby.
So this has been a really interesting project so far because I knew nothing about Fleetwood Mac coming in, and I found out a bunch on side 1. I think I'm bringing some of that information here, but I'm not entirely sure whether I'm just making stuff up or whether there's something actually going on. It's also really interesting to listen to an album as these groups of 5, as these little vignettes, because I felt like the first side had a kind of a specific vibe, and I think I like this side more. But I have I don't know. There's some strange stories happening on this side.
But I do like that idea. Just to hop back just a sec, I kind of came into this episode thinking oh, we kind of need to take these sides as their own separate pieces. I think it wasn't until I was editing that last one that I realized we talked about Sarah being this kind of longer song where if you saw it in concert, you would be fucking stoked because it's a fucking 10-minute Stevie Nicks song.
Right.
And I think that its place as the end of side A is maybe a little more impactful because it's the end of that side, right? You would need to stop playing and flip the disc.
Right. Yeah. That does bring into the question of how intentional each side is, because we no longer do that. We no longer have to stop and go, pick up the record and flip it over.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, a little bit that I got out of the Get Tusked book by Ken Calais and Hernan Rojas was putting the track list together in this very kind of hot and cold way was an intentional way of creating contrast. If you go from What Makes You Think You're the One into Storms, and then even Storms back into That's All for, it's so...
This is a real roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're whipping around the corners and you're kind of going up to the top.
But we love roller coasters. We love roller coasters. Okay, so let's jump into the first one there, What Makes You Think You're the One. You want to listen to a little preview of it?
Sure.
So that's What Makes You Think You're the One. To me, this is in a very similar place of The Ledge, where it's very simple songwriting, but I think it doesn't waste any time cutting to the quick. That's pretty. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent. It's a pretty angry song.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to me because
resentful.
I listen to these songs, and I've always been not great at picking up on all the lyrics, especially when they're not emphasized. Yeah. And so I think that my first listen through these were all focused on the music first. And honestly, like this was I have a lot of conflicting feelings about this song because it was probably my favorite song musically on this side. And then last night I read the lyrics and I was like, oh my, somebody's not having a good time. I will say that I am very happy that Fleetwood and Mac finally get to stretch a little bit because the bass and drums in here are so forward and they're just having, it seems like a great time, kind of in behind this, the anger in the lyrics.
Yeah. I agree. I think one of the really interesting lines or through lines in What Makes You the One that I feel like you see in a lot of other Lindsay songs on this album is, that that guitar that comes in, that that I don't know what that melody is, but I know I've heard that in like a fucking Coldplay song. I don't know what the song it is that it's like in a fucking like private practice soundtrack song, but that melody is so timeless. I mean, I'm not
versed enough in the actual chords to
it's
know.
It's not the chords, but.
Well, what I found really interesting was it felt like, because it feels like such a bass and drums forward track, is that when the guitar comes in, what it sounded like to me, and I don't know if this is the case, but what it sounded like was that there was a guitar part that was played forward, and then like in a few beats, then it was like reversed. Like it sounded like that part that you're describing sounded to me like a reversed instrument.
And it definitely does so I don't think it's reversed, but I think it is just played on a volume pedal and starts at 0 and then comes up after it's strummed. So,
right.
So you do kind of get
like the opposite of what you would normally expect.
Exactly.
Instead of building, it's kind of, I get you.
And so, I especially love what you talk about with the rhythm section because you could get away. I think you could get away with saying like a lot of Fleetwood Mac songs are just kind of like are just kind of common time for beat, like just 4 quarter notes. You listen to a lot of their live tracks, and a lot of their live tracks start off that way. It's just, builds a little enthusiasm. But I almost kind of feel like an intentional pushing away from that in some of Lindsay's tracks, where with how the drums and the specifically the kick and the snare, this is another track where there's like not a lot of hi-hats. There's a little bit of crash and cymbals in there, but it's pretty pared back and it still lands.
But it's complex. Like you can do a lot with a trap kit, right? If you're a good drummer. And I think that what's can be sometimes frustrating in this project is that I keep seeing Mick Fleetwood's like is a good drummer. And then when you get a
he's
track
just got to play this
where especially, and it's not necessarily the fault of anybody because sometimes the focus of the song is the lyrics, right? Or the guitar part or whatever. And you just need to keep time in the background. But I think that this guy has the chops to be able to do some really interesting stuff. It just doesn't come out on every song.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say, I talked a lot, and I'm going to continue to keep referring back to Get Tusked. But I think one of the weaknesses of that book is that it is from the perspective of these co-engineers and co-producers.
Okay.
So it really mostly focuses on what happens in the studio. And so some of the stories of this album aren't really particularly covered. I think the next song we'll talk about is a little bit like that. But a lot of Lindsay's songs, he would go and work on them at his home. And it was kind of this like trying to pull it out of him to actually record it in the nice studio, in Studio D. And so I almost wonder a little, because what we're going to listen to next is from the Alternate Tusk. And I believe that this is going to be a different take that is more in the studio.
Okay. Before we get to that, though, I did
Yeah.
want to ask you a question, because I think there was some reference to the personal relationships going on in the band, and I think that I internalized a little bit of that. But there's I swear to you, this side B has a story. It is telling like a story in 5 songs. Or kind of in 4 songs in a way. And so I guess what I wanted to know was like, what is the status of the relationships inside of the band at this point?
So at this point, the breakup between Lindsay and Stevie is about 2 years past.
Okay.
We are 2 years away from that. Stevie has had a short fling with Mick, and that has ended. Stevie's had starting other relationships. I believe it's Don Headley that she's with at the time.
Okay.
Around
American
this
Pie
time.
guy? Is that that's a different person.
Check out Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I recommend wikipedia.org for the information on that. And then Lindsay has been dating Carol Ann Harris, who I think worked for the band in like an administrative role briefly.
Okay.
But now she is kind of like his arm candy, and that is a relationship that is strained. She is also into the drugs, and she also doesn't have a band or an outlet like Lindsay does. So that kind of is a troubled relationship. And I think a lot of this song does speak directly to Stevie. I think it's kind of mentioned the vibrato, the very tight vibrato in this song, is kind of a dig at Stevie, because her live vocals, she'd have a really tight vibrato, a real you know? And so you have some of that at the end that it's almost like he's imitating her or making fun of her. I think the piano part on this, which is very simple, plump, 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 I think that's also meant to be a dig at her because her keyboard writing skills were rudimentary. Like, I mean, we just heard Sarah, which is very keyboard based. I mean, the demo for that had the keys baked in because it was so instrumental to the song.
Right. But that was the one that also where Christine, they had the second part that was played to kind of smooth out how rough they were in the original. So because this is not a very nice song. I don't know. I wonder a lot about this particular side, about what the order, about if there were fights over how the order goes, because this one and Storms, I think, are really speak to each other. And I think that which one comes first can, in your mind, either undercut or reinforce a narrative. But
I mean, this side doesn't have any Christine McVie songs on it.
Yeah.
And so you really have a very stark contrast between Lindsay's songs, which are pretty angry, or in the case of like That's All for Everyone, kind of resolute,
right,
in this being a new chapter. And then you have Stevie's songs that are a little, she's kind of ruminating in kind of the aftermath of this. You know, she's just been through this big album. They just became the biggest band in the world on the back of all of them breaking up with people. So well, what the fuck do you do then?
Yeah.
All right, well, do you want to listen to the alternate? What makes you think you're the one?
Absolutely.
Okay. A couple things to listen for this on this one. I believe this is a different take, and I believe this was recorded in Studio D.
Okay.
So I think the audio mixing is like it's going to be very vocal forward.
Okay.
That's my first fucking thing. But also, for being a different take, it sounds pretty close to the original.
Okay.
It was only in the past couple of days where I was actually firmly solid. Like, no, this has to be a different take. You know, some of where the guitar comes in, especially in the first verse, you know, in the first line, what makes you think you're the one? And in the studio version, the guitar doesn't play the response the first time.
Right.
What you're going to hear is the guitar will play the response to that first line even.
Okay.
So like little things like that. Anyway, here it is, the alternate.
Yeah, let's take a listen.
What makes you think you're the one who can laugh without crying? What makes you think you're the one who can live without dying? Have a little see. Every little bit of you and me. What makes you think I'm the one who'll be there when you're calling? What makes you think I'm the one who will catch you when you're falling? Every little bit is there to see. Every little bit of you and me. What makes you think I'm the one who will love you forever? Everything you do has been done, and it won't last forever. And every little bit is there to see. And every little bit of you
So,
Interesting.
a slightly different version of that. And I think this is maybe the one that there's the least amount of meat on the bones as far as the alternate goes for this side. But I think it's really interesting hearing this slightly different take, little more roomier sound, a little more live sounding.
I thought that was maybe I've just been like listening to this song too much, but that was like wildly different to me. Like I think that
the mix is very different.
Yeah, well, I think that what struck me is that all of the edges have been sanded off in this one. Like by taking those drums back, there was a difference in just the overall. There were some places where chord like melody progression stayed a little higher, didn't dip down lower. The bass didn't have as much of an emphasis, and there was this one bass part. Even the way that he says every little thing, I noticed was like different. Like this song is the original cut is catchy and bitter and sharp and kind of ugly in an interesting way, and I think that this alternate take, like,
a little sweeter almost,
it takes a lot of that out. It's like looking at a corporate version of something. I don't know.
I can hear that. Yeah. This is one of at least two times today where you're going to hear, I think, a significant difference in sound quality. We'll talk about it more later, but I think this is a strong one to start the side with. Did you ever get the sense that you were listening to a version of the studio recording, or does it actually play the idea of like, this is them doing it at a different time? This is another performance of this song
for the alternate take.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably not as much, again, as you'll see on some of these other tracks.
I got some really heavy like Beatley vibes in this song in the beginning. And I think that I'm always curious about the way that artists put together their music. And in this case, it's like, the difference in how loud the drums are mixed in this, like, can change the emotion of the song entirely. It's just like hitting you in the head with these snare hits, as opposed to just having them kind of, just in the background, keeping time, that kind of thing.
Even the bass part is different, but it's way more subdued.
Yeah.
And I think he might be doing a little bit more fancy playing of the bass on this version compared to a more simple version on the studio side. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's all I got for What Makes You Think You're the One. You want to jump into Storms?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, let's listen to a little bit of Storms. It's the first Stevie song.
Storms.
This is such a pretty song and a sad song, and it's great to sing to. God, I love singing to this song. It's an amazing song. Storms.
It's my least favorite song on this side.
Okay. Wow. I'm pretty surprised about that.
Yeah.
But it is a slower. Is it because it's slower?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's slower. It's not musically very interesting, in my opinion. It's very just kind of, it's like a lot of Stevie Nicks songs. It's more of a showcase of her kind of poetry and vocal stuff, in my opinion. But then I don't find I think the content is a little bit straightforward and kind of vanilla. Like, not to skip ahead, but between the two Stevie Nicks songs on this side, I love Sisters of the Moon.
Sure.
Because it's
that's apples and oranges, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think that I asked myself a lot whether my opinion of Storms was colored by
what makes you think you're the one?
What makes you think you're the one? Because what makes you think you're the one is it's this very like, what makes you think you're so special? And then you've got this, in my opinion,
and then we pan over to the beaten dog in the corner. It's a storm.
Well, somewhat standard. I don't know. A lot of the lyrics in this song to me are just very kind of simple. Like they aren't sung in a very complicated way. They aren't very complicated lyrics. It's just a very kind of sad song at a medium RPM, and that could very well be why it didn't land as much with me. But
I also think that this song has some things working against it.
Yeah.
A big thing, which I feel like we see a lot all around this album, is the start of the song.
This one takes a while to get started.
It does take a minute. It does take a sec. Not as long as Sisters of the Moon, though.
Yes.
But it almost gets the sense of like, someone's in the studio says, "Hey, we're recording, go start." And the guitar starts playing, and then eventually the shaker comes in.
Yep.
And Man, that is all over this album. And maybe this is me being maybe I'm wish casting with this, but I feel like the other thing about Fleetwood Mac songs, you could say, is that a lot of them end in a fade out instead of just ending like a regular song.
Yep.
And
not to go back, not to just go back too much, but you know, the little flourishes at the end of "I Think You're the One" stop the song, as opposed to just kind of wandering out into the street where you can't see it anymore.
And it's funny because they've done live versions of these of a lot of their songs, so it's not like you can't imagine what the end of that song might sound like.
Sure,
but I don't know if that's intentional. The kind of inversion of making it seem like everyone's fading in, having some sort of analog to fading in.
Tell me more, because I have less to say about Storms. Tell me what you like about it, or not like justify your.
Tell me what you like about the Storms. Well,
change my mind.
Well, here's one thing. I'm going to play a little bit of audio. Listen to the kick drum on this again. Okay. Does anything about that kick drum strike you as odd?
It's very faint.
It's pretty faint.
Is this another found sound?
You're about halfway right there.
Yeah.
The story on this is that is the metronome. That's the digital metronome that they EQ'd and did all stuff so that it sounds just like a very faint little kick.
Okay.
But when you listen to it, if you go back and listen to it again, I think what is interesting about that fact is, to me now when I hear that song, I am very aware that kick drum is perfect. There's they talk about the pulse of the song in the Get Tusked book. In some of the tracks that they're working on, what they do is they just solo the kick or the kick and the snare, just to hear how it actually fluctuates from the perfect metronome, because they play in the click track. And then in this song, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's always perfectly on beat. And that almost kind of plays off of Stevie's singing, which is a little looser. Like the "A Deadly Call Inside" line it always works really well for me, because she sings that she sings inside like a half beat early. It's just a little early.
Yeah.
But it makes this almost like a phasing sort of effect with the background vocals after it. And I mean, yes, the songwriting is pretty simple, but
a contrast between the kind of emotionless, robotic, like super in time, and then somebody, you know, that is kind of pouring their heart out on top of this in a structured but not slavish to this exact beat kind of way.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And when we listen to the alternate, I would say see if you can hear that metronome.
Okay.
When we listen to the alternate. Speaking of the alternate, here are a few factoids possibly. I believe that this is a demo. Okay. I think this is a demo that we're kind of getting into grain of salt territory on this story, so just bear with me a little bit. I believe the story was that this was recorded at Lindsay's house with Lindsay and Stevie doing this version.
This version, the album
what
version.
We will list, the alternate version.
The alternate
version that we're going to listen to. So there's a lot of things not in it, like obviously there's no backup vocals. The end, kind of her last little bits, pretty much everything from "I Loved You From the Start." That whole thing is not in what we're going to listen to. There are like some actual recording errors in it. Very, very small things. But like when we listen to it, it's in the first minute or so, you'll hear it in the left ear. It sounds like a hi-hat. Like someone accidentally stepped on a hi-hat. And then near the end, where she does the line, "I've always been a storm." Listen in on the low end, because to me, it sounds like someone grabbing the microphone. We've both worked with like microphone.
Sure.
You know when someone grabs the microphone by the pole or something, and you just get like a little bit of a little bit of a rumble sound.
Right.
There's a little bit of that right there.
Interesting.
But it happens at this moment where, when she says, the first time she says, "I have always been a storm," it almost like falls out. I have always, and I don't know. Maybe again, wish casting. In my head, she like is grabbing the mic, and that's I have always.
It's interesting to think the idea of introducing recording errors as a way of emphasizing specific emotions, but like only 4 people would.
We'll come back to that one too. But yeah, this is a really good, a really pretty song. Coming out of What Makes You Think You're the One, this one doesn't have as much of a rhythm section in it.
Which is strange to me because I feel like that's fine, again, to go back to Sarah, if the vocal side is really... I feel like this one is very workmanlike. When I've heard Stevie Nicks sing in a more impassioned way, I've heard what I consider to be slightly better lyrical content.
Sure.
So the fact that the music is so far back, kind of to what purpose is my question. But then again, I don't know.
Yeah, because this is only I want to say 4 years or so after Landslide, which was its own thing at the time. Well, let's jump into the alternate version of Storms, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Every night that goes between, I feel a little less as you slowly go away from me. This is only another test. Every night you do not come, your softness fades away. Did I ever really care that much? Is there anything left to say? Every hour of fear I spend, my body tries to cry, living through each empty night, a deadly call inside. I haven't felt this way, I feel, since many a year ago. But in those years of my lifetimes past, I did not deal with the road, and I did not deal with you, I know. Though the love has always been, so I searched to find an answer there, so I can truly win. Every hour of fear I spend, my body tries to cry, living through each empty night, a deadly call inside. been a storm. Always been a storm. Ooh, always been a storm. I have always been a storm.
There we go.
Interesting.
The alternate version, a acoustic version of Storms. When they put out this alternate version of Tusk, I want to say that some of these cuts had been made available previously, and I think Storms was one of them
on the internet in 1980.
Or whenever they re-released Tusk for the 20-year deluxe version or whatever.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
It's a very. I hear that and it makes me think that this was kind of supposed to be the landslide of the album. A very similar treatment with a very guitar forward pairing. Does that version, does the alternate Storms do anything for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought it was way better. Everything felt closer. Like the studio version felt like I was watching an entire band play a song, and this felt like I was sitting in the same room as two people kind of looking at each other. It made the song sadder because of the guitar, right, being so forward that it felt like it was the guitar and the vocals like having a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
I probably would have tried to record it. There was some I heard the cymbal and I heard the mic thing, but there was a few times where Mr. Buckingham was not keeping up his side of that rhythm section, where he kind of stumbled a few times, and I wouldn't mind once or twice, but it became a little bit
a little sloppy.
Well, it just became a little distracting, right? It was very pretty. It had a real sad beauty to it. That then you hear somebody that just can't keep the finger, the chords going correctly. And
Yeah.
Okay, man, you're pulling me out of it a little bit. Also, I would probably have shaved about 30% off of that ending part, because it just kind of felt like
without those ending lines there.
Yeah.
Without her doing those vamps or whatever those lines ended up being, it does feel a little contemplative.
I don't know, maybe I go home and make a version of this where after she sings her last line, you just put in a sound effect of somebody standing up. No, somebody standing up and walking out, closing the door, and then it's just okay, I said my piece, and now Lindsay, you just play it here as long as you want. We're going to McDonald's.
Side story. There is a J-pop singer in the 90s who had a song like that, where it just kind of kept going back into this loop of this chorus and this line, and then at some point you just it in the middle of a line is just a door slam, and you hear the engineer goes, okay, that's it. It's
But no, I like that version way more. I mean, I think that song Hearing that version makes me realize that the album version is overproduced in a way where with a lot of the Stevie Nicks stuff, it's like you want it to be as close up and personal as possible.
And I can totally see where you're in the weeds and you completely missed that sign. Like, because I agree. Like, I think doing an acoustic version of Storm like this would have been a little better than the studio version.
I'd love to see the unplugged version.
Yeah.
Of this.
Storms also was not. I think this was not performed when they started touring Tusk, and Storms and Beautiful Child from Side D. I don't think they ever got played by Fleetwood Mac until the 2010s.
Okay.
Until last decade or so. So some kind of interesting stuff there, because I think there's a world where like Storms would be a great concert track to kind of slow things down, but
the other thing is, I think I've heard some songs before that have like storm imagery in them, where with something as stripped down as that, you could even have experimented with putting like
fucking rain,
thunder, or some rain stuff, or just not super, but like some using that sparse soundtrack as to throw a little bit more experimental stuff in the background than a metronome.
But you could hear it, right? You could hear it a little bit. It bled in her headphones. You could hear the click.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it was too early for that.
Maybe.
But
then I wonder that they have such this. You told me they had this such the state of the art, like everything was kind of brand new, and it doesn't
rain in California. They couldn't bring the rain to the studio.
I mean, it's 79. Like, when was like Sgt. Pepper's or her Satanic Majesty's Royal Request? Like, I feel like there were kind of big, like, super produced pop albums with a lot of like crazy stuff going on. But
yeah, I mean, I've got 67 here as Sgt. Pepper.
I think there's probably some overtrack. I mean, it also just kind of depends on whether the band wants to go that produced, like that production heavy.
Because I also think that there's a world where the rain would be cheesy. Lindsey Buckingham has I think it's Out of the Cradle, and he's got kind of a sad song, and it does end with the rain, it kind of swells up at the end.
Sure.
It's good. I will begrudgingly accept it. But I do think there's a world where like that, maybe that's too on the nose.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At the same time, I could see you do some...
Maybe just crossfades into the sound of a storm at the end instead of just noodling on the guitar for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the guitar fades out and you fade into the...
Yeah. I wonder why his outro is so long. Either because he knew that there would be vamps at the end, which sometimes, would happen, or maybe he was just playing for like posterity's sake. Like, because he does kind of change it up a few times.
A little bit.
So maybe it's like, okay, I also want to get this on tape or something.
I don't know if this is a place to go into this, but I keep waiting. My thoughts on this may be tinged by the story that you told me at the beginning about how Lindsey Buckingham came in and, slapped his junk on the table and was like, this is, we're doing it my way or the highway.
Yeah.
But I keep waiting to see like true guitar brilliance coming from Lindsey Buckingham. And while he seems good, he definitely does not measure up to what I think of when I think of all time, like, standout guitar players.
Yeah. So. Especially for someone who, like, a big part of his character and his personality is that he's a fucking amazing guitar player.
Right.
And I think a lot of this album, I feel like they intentionally pull back on the guitar so much, either to avoid leaning on it as a crutch or maybe to try to do it something different. Because, Sisters of the Moon does have a pretty fucking killing guitar solo. Like, there is a lot of good guitar on here. When we talk about Brown Eyes later, Brown Eyes is a song that is fucking stripped of its electric guitar. We're going to talk about how they fucking did that twice over on Brown Eyes.
Okay.
They rip out so much guitar on it. And I definitely can see that here too. That even does play a little bit into the next track, That's All for Everyone. You want to hear a little preview of That's All?
Yeah, let's go for it.
That's all for everyone. Almost a bummer of a song. Of like, it's like if Last Call. It's like the Last Call song was angry at you. Like, that's all for everyone.
Yeah, we've reached the point on this side that I like to think of as the Lord of the Rings part, because any of the next 3 songs could have been the end of this side, and they all feel like they have a finality to them. That where this could have, you could have swapped this into the end, and it would have been, in fact, it would have been the end of an album song. Like it sounds like, again, a lot of my comparisons at this time are like Beatles songs, right? Of a kind of a, this kind of droning, easy going kind of ending song. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about this, because the other thought was that when I first listened to it, I thought that this was definitely going to be one of those things where you get 4 bars of this and then it just turns into another song. Like it's that kind of warm up, and then it just launches into something else, but it doesn't.
That's interesting.
I also expected a more major key change at some point of going
it does
from
kind of just stay in standby a little bit.
Yeah, and it kind of just repeats. I kept expecting it to do something, and then it kind of just.
Even like the kind of round that it tries to mimic a little bit with the backup vocals must be just exactly what I need. That's all. Need someone to know. That's like it is a really interesting vocal interplay. And I think with the there's something about the actual arrangement of it. It sounds like a music box. We talked about found sounds and found instruments.
Right.
One of the ones that gets talked about a lot in Get Tusked on this song is I believe it's a charanga.
Okay.
It is an Andean guitar. It's about the size of a ukulele, but it's got 10 strings.
Wow.
And so Hernan from the book gave Lindsay that instrument to play on this track, because they apparently had tried a lot of his tricks of, well, what if we try a toy piano? Or what if we try, doing the thing where we speed up a guitar and then slow it down, or slow it down and speed it up or something.
Yeah.
And so apparently that is kind of the linchpin, the thing that holds it all together.
Interesting. I to go back real quick, just again, I have trouble picking out specific lyrics, and this was something that I had a problem with on Think About Me, where they kind of ran too many words together, and I had to kind of like look at it. I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
The word exactly in this, I swear I was hearing the word sexy, like the
Must
first.
be just as sexy as I need.
Yeah, like the way it was all kind of blurred together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was reading the lyrics last night that I was like, oh, there's nothing sexy in this song.
Yeah. It's another kind of cry for help song from Lindsay. Oh, well, I guess we haven't even gotten to That's Enough for Me, but I don't know. I think you can kind of joke about how flat his lyrics are. They're pretty. I don't think there's a lot of subtext in some of his songwriting.
Well, it's funny because I was curious if this was somebody else besides our major players, because when you look at this side, you've got the like, you're not as special as you think you are, and then a like, oh, I'm very sad right now, and then, okay, everybody, shut up, we're all going home, kind of like, that's it, I've had enough. So when I say that side B has this little narrative in my head, this is the kind of like, I don't know, it wouldn't have surprised me if this had come from somebody else in the band, of just being like, would you two fucking stop? Yeah. This is all, I'm done listening to this.
Can I tell you, so there's a story in the Get Tusked book that kind of gets dropped near the end. But at some point while they're tracking the album, they're recording it, they have this idea, because they know, like, okay, we're open to this being a double album. What if so the idea is, what if we split it up into 2 albums?
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be one disc that has Stevie and Christine's songs. And then later we can put out the second album and it's Lindsay's music.
Mm-hmm.
But when we sell the first album, we sell it in a 2-disc sleeve so that when you buy the second album, you just put it in there.
Okay.
And that's kind of a neat idea.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons you wouldn't fucking do it.
Sure.
Like you couldn't sell fucking a vinyl sleeve without a second sleeve, or then you just have a second sleeve and that's a waste. Or like, why would anyone buy a second disc of songs that sound fucking nothing like the first disc?
Sure.
Any number of reasons why you wouldn't do that. But
Yeah.
I think that they spent a good amount of time, maybe Lindsay did, thinking, okay, my stuff is going to be cordoned off a little bit. I don't know. Have you ever had, I've definitely had creative projects like that where I thought, okay, I'm banking on this thing that we said we're going to do. We said we're going to do this at the end of the thing. So I'm not going to do that thing. We're going to do it at the end. And then you get to the end and they're like, we're not even going to do that thing. Like I feel that very personally, very, very deeply in my soul. Do I feel that?
Yeah. I don't know. This one was probably, this one kind of shares a lot of the similar stuff that I had problems with on the first side of just being a very droning, you know, as a backdrop for something else, it would have been good. But like, as it was, it didn't go anywhere. It was, it reminded me of a really interesting looking wallpaper, but then you see it like being replicated over and over again, and it becomes kind of more.
And then you see the
mundane.
seam.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know, with that in mind, let's jump into the alternate version of That's All for everyone. With you having said that,
okay,
let's keep that in mind.
Nothing to tell ya, no words to write. Well, I've turned to stone, and I'm so broken, night after night. So don't let 'em know I fell that easy. Don't let it show. It's hard to please me. Let the four winds blow. No more running. No more lies.
So
this one, they recorded this on a yacht? Is that what happened? Did we have island drinks this day?
Yeah. Lyrically, a completely different song.
Absolutely.
We talked a little bit about this in Side A, but part of Lindsay's songwriting process was kind of music and melody first, and then lyrics kind of later.
Sure.
They describe the process a little bit in Get Tusked as the idea of like him figuring out what he did and didn't want to stay. So, presumably he was coming up with all sorts of different lines and different verses to potentially use to full effect, a completely different song here.
Now, was that Stevie or Christine? I'm not.
Wait,
singing?
This is Lindsay.
Wait, that was Lindsay.
Lindsay Buckingham sings this.
Oh, the voice sounded so much higher to me.
He does. He gets a falsetto. He can get that falsetto.
Oh, okay. Well, so when I was listening to it, about halfway through, it occurred to me that what I really want is to take those two and put them together. I want That's All for Everyone to be the chorus between some of these verses, because these verses don't have like an anchor, and I could even hear it in my head about the way that the beginning of That's All, like it steps down, and this is very high, and it would have made a great way when you finish one of the verses to then step down to That's All for Everyone, and then kind of pop back up into this.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And then I really like, is it a steel drum or is it a piano or is it, whatever's going on back there that sounds like a steel drum. I like that a lot.
I don't know if that's a steel drum or I want to say there's like a type of bell instrument that you play with your thumbs, but you pluck it.
Okay.
And I think there might be something similar to that.
Okay.
And then you kind of got that droning sound in the background. I think if I remember right, that is a, you can get a keyboard that has samples of different sounds.
Yeah.
A very early, I think, used reels on some level. They had a similar instrument set to like a cello setting. So I think that's some of like the droning sound in the background.
Okay.
And then, we hear there's a little bit of a longer lead into the first beat, and you hear what sounds like a music box winding up. I kind of don't know why they have the longer intro on this, unless maybe this is a case of this was an earlier take, and
the content is just so different, though. The lyrical content is just so different than the other one.
I mean, it's I'm like having this weird dysmorphia about it, because like when you hear them back to back, you think, okay, one day they go in and they do one version, then then an hour later they come in and do this next version.
Right.
It's like, no, there's probably weeks or months between the two takes, or at least the two vocal takes. And there is just something about the arrangement, all of the orchestra of different instruments coming together is a very singular sound on this album. Like, it's kind of poppy, it's kind of percussive, but it's not a pop rock song, and it doesn't really have like a driving beat. It's very, melodic, and it has all of these different parts and rounds and voices. I mean, I think it's probably Lindsay's prettiest song on this album. If I had to look at the rest of this, like, Save Me a Place is also very sweet. Where That's All for Everyone is kind of sad. It's a sadder song.
Yeah.
But there's something very like pleasant about it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Something about, especially on the studio version, just where everything hits on that first beat, the mix of the kick and the guitar and the singing. For some reason, it makes me think of like a theme song to a show. You know, like
I can see that.
that's all, and then that's all. So
yeah, I mean the biggest issue that I had with the main studio track is once again the standard Jeff of it just goes on like it doesn't. You know, I would have loved to have heard
there's no change,
any change, like a big fill from some instruments, bring in a different singer, you know, just hand the baton off to Christina or Stevie, change the key, change the tempo. It's such a simple song that I feel like you could have gone in a billion different directions, and it's like, no, straightforward.
And I really wonder why not in kind of a pretty experimental session.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because okay, now I'm just like fucking wish casting again. But like I could see a world where like, all right, everyone's gone in to work on Lindsay's song that day, and someone has a wild hair. Like, what if you did have a change, or what if you did have X, Y, or Z? But maybe it is, you know, and maybe everybody's still a little touchy about like whose album it is and who's doing what. So we'll go along with it, and because I do get that sense of like nobody really told Lindsay no on any of his songs.
Yeah.
And from this time period, Lindsay doesn't really have any unused songs. Christina has maybe one or two, and then Stevie has a couple of songs that go off into her solo career because she couldn't advocate or push them forward enough. So I think it's interesting because I would also say like if you had to cut Lindsay's songs, maybe this is one that you cut. Because I've been thinking about that. Like I know he's got a lot of songs on this album, and a lot of them are shorter.
Yeah.
But if you had to cut something of his,
well, either that or I might have, again, as I said when we first started with this, I think this would be the perfect end of the album song of kind of just, you know, we're cooling down from all the feelings that we've had in this just kind of warm vanilla beanbag chair.
So,
like
in a storytelling sense, maybe okay, I'm filling in a lot of blanks here, but you know, maybe that's not the end of the story, right? I mean, if you talk about Rumors, that's them all, you know, having relationship troubles and breaking up. Maybe that's what this song is meant to be. I don't know. I don't entirely know. I mean, I think maybe it's not any more complicated than I think we're all done here. You know?
yeah, very much. Could be that.
Yeah.
But then it just keeps going.
And then it keeps fucking going, yeah.
For 2 more songs on this side and then a whole other record to put on later. So.
Yeah. Hey everyone, just a quick intermission and we'll get back to the music. If you're enjoying Side B, Side C will be released in 2 weeks, but why wait? Listen to all 4 sides right now by subscribing on Patreon, patreon.com/LFGX. Get the podcast feed for full-length previews and enhanced audio quality for the biggest, best Two Tusks experience. My name is Bryce Castillo. Check out the marbles racing streams I do at the website marbles.win or follow me on Twitch at Brycas, BRYCAS, to join in on the fun every Thursday night. Season 12 starts in late March. My co-host is Jeff S. Thank you to him for joining me, and please show him some love over on Rage Select on YouTube, where he's been covering new video game releases for over a decade. That's Rage Select on YouTube or rageselect.com. You're listening to Two Tusks, hosted by Bryce C. and Jeff S., produced by Bryce Castillo. Fleetwood Mac's music, including Tusk Deluxe, Fleetwood Mac Live Deluxe, and Mirage Tour 82 Live, are available everywhere from Warner Records. Now, back to the Tusks. All right, track 4, Not That Funny. Another Lindsay song, another upbeat sort of song. There's a lot to talk about on this one.
Yeah.
So let's just listen to a preview of it, huh?
Absolutely.
It's not that funny, is it? Don't know what it is, but you can't get enough of it. It's not that funny, is it? Don't blame me. Please, please,
It's not that funny.
It's not that funny. Is it? But is
It's
it?
a little funny.
It's a little funny.
A little funny.
It's not haha funny.
This is a strange one.
Yeah.
This one's got the plinking guitars where they, recorded it long and they squeezed it so it would be at a higher pitch.
Okay. But it's also got that fuzz guitar in there as well.
Let's have some fuzz. I think the vocals. So this is another classic story from this album that Lindsay so loved the sound of the reverb in his bathroom at home that they installed a faux bathroom in Studio D that they lovingly called Studio B for him to record this song. And then he also supposedly recorded the vocals for this in a push-up position. They put the mic on the ground, push-up position.
Okay.
And honestly, I think it fucking works.
Yep.
Because he sounds strained, he sounds angry, and it's kind of hard to imitate that. To imitate that. It's hard to sing angry. You can't sing angry. It's like, what do you do with that? You want to yell.
Yeah.
And so I think that leads into the level of distortion. Like, I will spoil you for this. The alternate version of Not That Funny, it's going to be like you drank a clear glass of water. You're gonna wake up and your pores will be open. It sounds so clear. How do you feel about Not That Funny?
This was my I don't know why I always feel the need to rank them, but this is my third favorite on this side. Okay. I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was this is like more of what I want out of this.
Yeah.
It's experimental. It's strange. It's got a kind of playful but dark, bouncy vibe to it.
Yeah.
The lyrical content is also very interesting, where it's kind of again, it's kind of bitter. But again, and to my little vignette story about like, well, that's all for everyone is kind of like a finality, and this is almost like somebody reconsidering.
Yeah,
like that's all for everyone being the kind of like, oh, I'm done with you. That's it. We're done. And then kind of later, this to me was like,
it's not that funny. Is
regrets, kind of thinking about how maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. I again, not to keep harping on drums, but I like the fact that you can hear the drums and the drums are doing something, and they're, they're very much there.
There's a lot of kind of fills and it's a lot of room for the drums to play around, especially at the end.
Yeah.
Where, the cymbals kind of come in and it's a bit of a cacophony almost, but it all is in time and it all works.
Yeah.
It all sort of works.
Yeah. It's a very noisy song.
Yeah,
but it works in that kind of chaotic way, and the beat kind of keeps the whole thing together in a way that I feel like at any moment it could fly apart.
Yeah, and it like the song, it does kind of fade out.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It feels almost more of an explosion than an implosion of an ending of a song. Did you catch the weird symbol at the end of the song?
I did. Yep.
What is your thoughts on the weird symbol?
It sounded like a very small symbol, or I don't know. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right thing.
Oh,
but
maybe not.
Maybe I'm not thinking of the right.
Maybe you're not. Okay.
Thinking of the right
I'm going to skip to just the very end of the song here.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's just muted. It hit and grabbed, and then kind of hit it a second
the
time.
Symbol and they mute it. And I don't know if I think that was they kind of imply about this in the book. Maybe not even imply, but I think that was a mistake that had happened at one point, and then they just kept doing it.
Yeah,
because we're gonna hear on the next one, it happens again. The near the end of it, but the timing is slightly different. so it can't be the same.
Okay.
I don't think it could be the same. Two kind of I got some meaty stuff on this one. This was another song that kind of had started at Lindsay's house,
Okay.
and he brought it into the studio and played it on some little speaker. I don't know how it was some tiny little like a boombox or something, like a little home recording tape recorder. And he brings it in, and they're like, okay, I mean, this is like, it's another noisy cacophony, Lindsay. We'll try to do it. And so they're asking like, okay, what do you think you want to do? And he says like, oh no, I want to record it on this boombox. I want to record it on this shitty boombox. It sounds great on my shitty boombox. And so I think the short version is they acquiesce to it somewhat, but they also put real microphones in there, and they do try to record it nicely. But what you get on the studio album, especially at the end here, but his vocals are often clipping. He is distorting his vocals in a lot of this. And again, I'm gonna simplify this a lot, but with analog recording, it was really fucking difficult to do that back in the day. I mean, granted, he probably was like lips on the microphone close if he was in this push-up position,
right?
But you could really hear it as the song is fading out on the studio track, because if you've ever recorded something where you've like distorted the volume of like someone speaking, even if you make it quieter, you still have that distortion.
Right.
There's still like a hard edge there.
Yeah.
Because of just the recording. And so there's some of that in here which speaks to the level of animosity and the level of aggression behind it.
It is. I mean, it is an angry song. A lot of the Lindsay songs are very, very angry.
Yeah.
I feel like so.
Can you indulge me for one moment?
Sure.
As we talk about comedy in music?
Sure.
Okay. Lindsey Buckingham was a big fan of the Beach Boys.
Okay.
Big fan of Brian Wilson and what he did with that. Brian Wilson, after they did Pet Sounds, which was a kind of monumental record in pop music, it was like, at that time, people didn't like albums because they just wanted the singles. They didn't want all these extra fucking songs that you threw on there. And so Pet Sounds is kind of a thing. So one of the things after Pet Sounds, the Beach Boys start working on this new album called Smile. They eventually put out a version of Smile. Multiple people put out multiple versions of Smile, but ultimately what was going to be Smile never came out.
Okay.
And so Warner Brothers wanted to release it, but the band was pretty stringent, like, no, we're not going to give you enough to release. Like, we just couldn't figure it out. And the idea behind it was bizarre. Brian Wilson was kind of really into the idea of how could I write music with the same tools as you would make like TV or a movie.
Like a camera, or like what does that mean? Which tools?
Well, one of the things was jump cuts.
Okay.
The idea of like, can you jump cut? Can you put jump cuts in music? If you think about Good Vibrations, which was a song that they had made at the very start of all of this, that song is very similar to that, where it kind of has different sections that are pretty discreet and different sounding. But that was a big thing of what he wanted to do with the Smile album. It was supposed to be a commentary on adolescence and adulthood and American culture and all of these different things. And it was this very experimental way of writing and recording an album. They recorded lots of chunks. If you think about loops today, the idea of like a musical loop, this was a very, very proto version of that. They would record one little segment, they had that. They'd go and record another little segment, and they would try to put them on top of each other.
Kind of move them around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, I don't even know where this fact comes from, but while they're recording Tusk, Lindsay, because Fleetwood Mac is also on Warner Brothers, somehow gets a chance to go listen to whatever was archived of Smile at the time and uses a lot of that to influence some amount of his work on this album. And I guess my tie in all of this is like that album never came out. It like famously never came out. For decades it was almost like this interactive project of people trying to piece it together and what would it look like? What would it sound like? Why would it do this? And I almost wonder if the idea of comedy is somewhere here in this song. It's not that funny. And granted, this is not the song that has a jump cut. There is a jump cut on this album, and it's not in this song.
Okay.
But things like that crash at the end where like it mutes. They fucked up.
Yeah.
And then it kind of comes back, but you're hearing the tail end of it.
Right.
And you can kind of know it's not the full tail of it. It wasn't like they took a sample and they chopped it and they moved it over. Like it actually, you're missing something there.
Right.
It's not that funny.
It's not that funny.
It's not that funny. So this is not to say that there's a punchline here. This is just opening up the world. If you've got a conspiratorial mind of maybe it wasn't funny when they broke up. Maybe it wasn't funny when you tried to fuck up the music. Maybe you thought your funny music would be funny and no one's laughing.
Because you can actually see the musical backing for this track being for it could be like a goofier song, like a couple of sproings and a little monkey grinder stuff, and this could be
dishes crashing,
right? And this could be a comedy song or like a novelty song, like the stuff they had back in the 60s.
Not that funny, haha!
Right,
like kind of lean into it even.
Yeah. But then it's not that funny. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe the song has more layers. The biggest question that I have, and I've kind of sequestered myself as far as I haven't listened to any other real Fleetwood Mac albums. I haven't looked up anything on the internet about this.
Sure.
Kind of at your behest. So I really don't know whether I wonder, as we go into these in such great detail and we listen to some of these alternate things, whether is Lindsey Buckingham a genius, or does Lindsey Buckingham think he's a genius? And that when you listen to other, what would be more considered quote unquote genius artists of the time or influential artists of the time, that you're seeing artists that push the envelope more, that do more with these same sorts of things, where all of the trappings in this album of a bohemian custom studio with a bathroom because I like the way it sounds in my bathroom, are all of the trappings of a genius musical mind that wants to experiment. But then what you get is
not the sum of its parts.
It is not that brilliant. It's not that brilliant, is it? You're not getting exceptional guitar parts or,
right.
The world's greatest, even, I talk a lot about the percussion and the bass, and sometimes those shine, but you're not getting whiplash jazz drumming. You're not getting...
It's a lot of like fills for the drumming.
It's all very good and competent, but it's more Ringo Starr and less Mitch Mitchell, in my opinion. But that, I constantly wonder about that. And then it's very interesting to go to the Stevie Nicks part, because Stevie Nicks's strengths are vocals and writing. And the writing in those songs is of a completely different character than these other songs that a lot of times end up being very repetitive. And you say, the music was written first, but then a lot of times the music isn't that. It's like they had one idea and then they needed to okay, well, we've done 2 bars of that, we need to change something, move something, go somewhere else, and then it ends up kind of stuck in this morass a lot of times. So.
And that might have been a silver lining of Rumors being, one disc of we have to edit these songs down. Let's, when you get to that point, when you're cutting really good stuff, you're only left with really great stuff.
Right.
Versus here where I believe it was Not That Funny, and Not That Funny was from a demo called Pins and Needles, and that actually became 2 songs. It was Not That Funny and this other song. That means that there is some very literal shared DNA in these songs. The line "Don't blame me" pops up in both of these songs.
Okay.
As well as "Somebody Outside the Door."
Okay.
I think what happened is that Lindsay had like a home invasion or something.
Oh my goodness.
And it's very, it's very scarring. And I think that is what that line is. Somebody outside the door.
Okay.
Even though you would think it's like, is it someone, I guess it is someone waiting for you, but not in a romantic or like a regretful way, but more of like a violent criminal way.
Right. The sentence after "there's someone waiting" does a lot.
Okay, well, let's dive into the alternate Not That Funny.
Okay.
Things I would say to keep an eye out for. I mean, the sound quality is going to be the big one on
this is the
one.
boombox version.
Well, here we go. This is the alternate Not That Funny.
It's not that funny, is it? You don't know what it is, but you can't get enough of it. It's not that funny, is it? Don't blame me. Please, please, please. I didn't want to bleed, so I didn't want to be this late. So don't make me wait. And it's not that funny, is it? No one to turn you on. All your hope is gone. And it's not that funny, is it? Yeah. So don't blame me. Please, please, please. You're here 'cause I said so. Didn't wanna be this late. So don't make me wait. Goodbye. Goodbye. Get enough of it. It's not that funny, is it? Funny.
There's like a weird little sample at the end there, and I have no idea what it is, but it's not in the other version of it, so I want to make sure. Not That Funny?
Wow, that's That's really interesting. That's very, very interesting.
Doesn't it feel like someone tried to save this song and this is the saved version of it?
What the first thing that I got out of this is because the vocals are so much more smoothed out. Like I just kept thinking, oh, it's so much smoother. Like it's not as staccato as the album version. But what I thought was interesting is that I think this works better because with these very smooth, not doing a push-up in a bathroom vocals, it contrasts the smoothness of the song with these dark lyrics.
Yeah. And a very fuzzy, I feel like pretty fuzzy on the guitars and the background track.
But it all kind of like smears together in a good way. Like it kind of oozes together in a, like the other one has this kind of discordant feeling where everything feels a little bit separated. And I think that a lot of the guitar work on this track ties a lot of it together, especially with the vocals. I really appreciated that there was some really interesting guitar stuff going on in here that was like, you know, rocking to listen to.
Yeah. And you've got some of one of the ways Lindsay would do a treatment for his guitar on a lot of these songs was he would plug it directly into the console. So instead of plugging it into an amp and miking the amp to get the fuzz, he would just get this really clean guitar sound that feels like it shouldn't be right. Like I don't know, like a guitar should be a little noisy and fuzzy and gross.
Yeah.
But when it's so, I mean, it's almost like a bee sting of that's how I think of it. How sharp it is.
I also was it was funny. I got the impression about a third of the way that I was like, oh, this very much sounds like a Cars song. Like it sounds like a song from the band The Cars.
Okay. I really like how much Lindsay leans into his vocal cracking as he goes between this high and low octave all the time. And it's to me it feels like nowadays for like really I feel like people who are into making videos, it's very easy to get obsessed with like VHS effects and like old video.
You just buy the Red Giant plugin and you just drag it on, and then
like technical artifacts, like limitations of the media.
Yeah,
and I think like the singing, we talked about like the really distorted voice in the album track, but then also just like the decision to not just keep, but to like write in that you have this vocal crack that you have to have this like, like you have to like, it's almost like emasculating a little bit of like going up into that really high octave, but
I don't know. It's emasculating as when I thought that That's All for Everyone was Stevie or Christine.
I wasn't gonna bring that back up. The other thing is I want to talk about one of the lines. This is both of the versions. It's you're here because I say so. Are you aware of the lore Bible of that?
Absolutely not.
So when Fleetwood Mac, the three-piece Fleetwood Mac was looking for a new guitarist, and they found Lindsey Buckingham, despite the fact that Lindsey was in a strained relationship with his girlfriend at the time, he said, hey, we are a package deal. If you bring me in the band, we have to have Stevie in the band too.
Okay.
And I mean, they were looking for a guitarist. They weren't looking for Stevie.
Sure.
But they got Stevie.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Not that funny.
Interesting.
But you're here because I say so. So I mean, I think that's the other part that makes it like, nope, this is kind of we're not banging on, but we're attacking Stevie a little bit.
Right.
Attacking.
I mean, this whole side is just very antagonistic in a lot of different ways.
That's true. I mean, even we'll talk about Sisters of the Moon in a minute, but like even Sisters of the Moon is kind of self-depreciating with the lyrics a little bit. Any other thoughts here on Not That Funny? I think this was a single. I think this was one of the few songs that they put out as a.
I think it would totally work as a radio song. I think it would also probably be a banger of a live track.
It is a banger of a live track.
You could clap along or stomp along to this, like it's got a big beat to work with.
I would recommend you check out some of the live versions of Not That Funny. There's the one that's great. I love it. It's like 10 minutes or so. It's one where the middle is really long because I think they bring it down. They bring it down to like just the bass and like maybe a stick on the drums and just a little bit of guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is after like Lindsay's like shouting into the microphone, and so it just goes down to this kick drum, and the camera cuts over to Mick, and he fucking chugs a whole bottle of beer, and then Lindsay comes back around the stage, and he's smoking a joint, and he's walking over to John, and they're kind of they're both playing. They're playing this real soft thing, but it was. I just try to give this guy a secondary high or something. But this is one that goes great live.
Yeah.
Especially it's good with the piano. I think when they do it live, they have a little bit more piano from Christine, and I think it helps a lot.
Seems like that would definitely work into that song.
Yeah.
Very well.
It doesn't make you. I think you could be worried that it might make it a little ragtimey, a little jug, little hooting on a jug.
Sure.
But no, I think a little piano helps make it kind of a rollicking rocker.
All right.
It's time for another final song,
mm-hmm.
Sisters of the Moon.
Just very briefly, I feel like any of the last two songs could have been the last song on the album or on this side.
Yeah.
And
anyway. It gets blown out of the fucking water.
Sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's listen to a preview here of Sisters of the Moon. I was listening to this. I was setting up the room here before you got over here, and I was listening to the song on my AirPods.
Yes,
fucking thrashing around. It's a fucking thrasher of a song.
Air guitar. I don't. I don't know that I agree. It's a great song.
Okay.
I don't know if it's exactly.
I will convince you of this.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. Yeah, I really like this song. I think that in a lot of ways, this song was why I was so ambivalent about Storms, because I think that this is like, actually, you know what? I'm moving this one up to number 1 over What Makes You Think You're the One, which was a more traditional thing. But like, this seems like Fleetwood Mac in it. Like that, this seems like what I would expect if I put in a tape that had Fleetwood Mac on the front and hit the play button.
Yeah.
You know, Stevie Nicks is talking about spiders, and you got the whole band behind that's kind of backing her up. But
like, you know, we've talked about the rhythm section a lot. This is a rhythmic song.
Yeah.
Like there's, you know, poetry into the lyrics and all, but every part of it, especially the chorus, is so rhythmic. Like it's just that I don't want to keep saying rhythm, but just that dun, 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 dun.
Well, that was another thing that I noticed on this one. After listening to it for a while, it was almost like the vocals are all verse and the chorus is like the rest of the band kind of jumping in to have this moment between the individual kind of parts of the story. So
it's very similar to the modern structure of like an EDM song or an electro song, where it's a bit of a build up and then the actual chorus, like a fucking Chainsoaker song, where the actual chorus is just a melody line or a rhythmic line, and everything else is kind of just a build up, right?
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't call it dubstep for 1979, but I don't think I would be alone in thinking that.
Yeah.
This is a great song. It's been on the set list a lot for the live. The live version. Granted, I've seen a lot of the live versions of this, and so I think I conflate the studio version with the live versions a lot because they're great. It is a track that really fits the full band. A couple of stories behind Sisters of the Moon. It's an older song of Stevie's.
Okay.
I don't know the exact history of it, but it had she had almost recorded it at one point for. I don't even remember why she had almost recorded it at one point or for somebody else. Maybe they almost gave it to somebody else, and they ended up. I think like Lindsay ended up somehow blocking it or making it not happen. But also, this was one of the songs Stevie had ready near the start of recording the album. So much so that, and they kind of knew, like, oh, this is a fucking song,
right?
That they went on tour a few months into recording the album, a short tour, and they included this on the set list there to try it out, rehearse it, and so. It was under their belts by the time they ended up recording it. Okay. The other part of recording it is, I want to say that they took 30 some takes or something to find this final master take that they use on on the album, and
one that they really wanted to get right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Even to the point where like I mentioned earlier, where they silence and they just listen to the kick and the snare to hear the pulse of the song.
Yeah, and
they make the adroit decision to make it 2 BPMs faster because it just needs that little bit. And I mean, my only like kind of criticism of the studio version is that it can't have it just can't have the live sound. Like, sure. It's not the live version. The live versions are great because you have the full band, very traditionally set up with the instruments, but then also the song, they're doing the longer version of the song. Stevie's got extra verses in it.
Okay, because I was going to ask about that, because my only criticism with this was, especially when I got into the lyrics of it, was when I got to the end of the song and I was like, we just got started. What happens next? Miss Nicks, please keep telling me the story.
And so the live versions are a little bit like that. We'll listen at the end to a little bit of a live version.
Okay.
So that's like my gripe about it, is it's not perfect enough. It is merely a 9.9 out of 10. But yeah, this does kind of feel very climactic. This whole side, I feel like, has been building in that sense that you were talking about, of feeling like this song could be the end. No, this song could be the end.
Right.
This song could be the end.
But it's all, I did find it a little strange, because I don't see this. The content of this song is definitely personal, but everything else on this side seems like it's specifically related to relationship frustration. Whereas this, when you said that this was written earlier, to me that made sense because this song kind of feels of a separate piece than the rest of this. Like, all of the rest of these are very kind of personal feeling songs, and this is, the metaphor, and she came in like a Black Widow and wrapped in velvet and all,
Though the background behind Sisters of the Moon is that it is kind of autobiographical. Stevie wrote it while on tour. I don't know if I assume it would be for the Rumors tour, but it could have also been for the White Fleetwood Mac album tour. And so much of that song is singing about her looking in a mirror one day and realizing, oh, I'm like super gaunt and I'm, the heavy persuasion. It was hard to breathe.
Right.
And so I think between that and it being it's always been held up as like this song of sorority for Stevie Nicks and all of her Sisters of the Moon,
right?
All of her gal pals at the time, and they even had these like crescent moon necklaces that they got for being around.
Okay.
Another interesting thing about Sisters of the Moon is no Lindsay backing vocals.
Right.
It's only Christine and Stevie, which was an intentional thing of like, I only want women to be back it, which like, hey, Lindsay's got plenty of songs that your ass is not on. So like.
What about the Brothers of the Moon? Why can't they be in there too?
So when we talk about the alternate take of Sisters of the Moon, I believe what we're going to listen to is another take from that night where they did the 30-some takes.
Okay.
And I say that for a few reasons. One, there's no guitar solo. The backing vocals you will hear are pretty different. They're not they're just not finished. Like the ones here are finished. The ones that we're going to hear are kind of scratch.
Okay.
And then I want to say it's just a little bit longer because we get one of the verses that shows up in pretty much all the live versions, but is not in the studio version. Before we do, the other thing, the fade in on Sisters of the Moon, another song that has a very deliberate intro.
Yeah.
Almost, it reminds me a little bit of, Black Dog from Led Zeppelin? Hey, mama, stay the way you move. I went away. You ever listen to have you ever heard the very beginning of that song? There's like a very small, like, it's like it's not a recording mistake, but they have some little bit of a tape thing on there that kind of sounds a little weird and atmospheric and strange.
Okay.
And I feel a lot of that with the decision for the intro for Sisters of the Moon.
I think it goes on a little long for my taste, just because I think that like I can see myself with this record of just being like, this is the track I want to listen to. Yeah. Like I appreciate the little kind of drum tricks that are done at the beginning, but I think it maybe goes on one measure too long. Like you could have some of that, but
even the stuff at the very beginning where you hear the bass dun 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 dun, like it sounds like you're like, okay, it sounds like he was playing by mistake, but it is kind of syncopated in the right way. You hear a little bit of a voice and you're like, why is that there? Like it does kind of create a little bit of a mysterious vibe. And for a long time I thought like, okay, maybe they pieced that together, or maybe it was a bad take and they just used the start of that take. And what we're going to hear in the alternate version is, no, that's kind of compose. That's kind of the way they were supposed to do it. We're going to hear like a slightly different take on the bass. The other thing is John's bass is going to come in early in this intro. And I think that really help you figure out which is the one beat and the two beat. Because when it's just the kick and the hi-hat in the studio version, I know sometimes I get lost of like, okay, is the hi-hat on 2 or is the hi-hat on 1? Where when you have John playing it, you can keep track of the 4 count a little better. Okay, any other thoughts on Sisters in the Moon before we hear the alternate?
No, let's take a listen.
All right, here we go. Sisters of the Moon, the alternate take. I think this is one that is meant to be maybe more illuminating than convincing. Because I think it doesn't help that there's no guitar solo. I think it doesn't help that the background vocals are unfinished.
Yeah.
But I think especially Stevie's vocal take is really interesting in that it sounds like she has sung this song a lot. It kind of sounds like she's doing a live version where you would change the melody and make it seem a little bit different so that, when you're live, it's different. And you get to be a little offbeat. You can change things up a little. You can flow it up a little bit. And I think that's what you get in her vocal delivery here. And maybe that's why they didn't do it, because it sounded it didn't sound like the standard. It sounded like, oh, you're vamping on the studio cut. You're like, save it for the stage.
I didn't it was strange. I don't know if this is just I don't know what happened here, but I didn't hear that much of a difference. Like it might have just been that I wasn't as familiar, that I didn't listen to the studio cut enough times to listen to the nuance, because I think whenever I listen to this song, I get so caught up in just listening to Stevie Nicks that the background stuff is good, especially in the kind of the instrument chorus that I was talking about. But
it is very. I mean, I don't think it's as noticeably different.
Yeah,
but I think there's enough here that at least tells me this is a completely different take.
The one thing that I did think was that I would be interested in hearing what this sounded like with a piano instead of a keyboard, with a full-on analog piano, because it's such a, I don't know, maybe it's just reminding me, maybe I'm just flashing back to my Tori Amos days, but like it does seem like the sort of song that might benefit from having that more naturalistic piano sound as opposed to the kind of clipped keyboard that I think is in there.
Yeah. I can see that. I really like this song a lot. I think it's some hard hitting analysis here.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, and I think it speaks to Stevie Nicks' songwriting sensibilities to put together a song like this, right? Where there isn't necessarily a chorus, it's a rollicking roar into an instrumental charge. Like that kind of doesn't, I don't know if that would play on like pop radio. Like, I don't know where this would fit on pop radio versus like rock radio for
maybe 90s pop radio. Things were a little bit, there was some experimental stuff. You could get, 8-minute Tool songs on the radio.
but not in 1979.
Sure. Yeah.
Some other background on this. Everyone loved the song when they were putting it together. So they had asked Stevie, like, hey, we kind of want to make this a single. Will you let us cut it down? And so I don't know if it ever was a single or maybe it was a B-side, but I think they had at least given themselves the option to like, hey, if we want to do something with this, let's like give us the chance to even cut it down even more.
Sure.
Despite the fact that what makes it work is that it just kind of keeps going back and forth from A to B. And every time you do it, it works, man. That math always checks out.
Sure. You get this really heavy kind of poetic verse, and then you get to take a break and kind of soak in the music for a little while, and then you get to go back and find out what happens next. Like it's not a traditional song structure, but it's more, I don't know, it's more of like a poem than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. It even harkens back to like pre-Rumors Fleetwood Mac. They had a hit song called "Oh Well," which was an inspiration for that which was the inspiration for Black Dog, actually. But it had a very similar thing of singing and then music, and then music.
Oh yeah, that song is set up pretty much the same way, isn't it?
Yeah. And isn't that interesting? What does that mean? Okay, well, we're going to close it out here with a little bit of a live version of Sisters of the Moon.
Okay.
I mean, over the years, Sisters of the Moon was on the set list a lot. It was long. It tended to add one or two verses.
Mm-hmm.
We heard some of it. We heard one of those verses in that alternate take.
Sure.
And the line is, so we make our choices, but there never was any choice.
Mm-hmm.
We listen to their voices while ignoring our own voice.
Yeah.
And so, here's a little bit of Sisters of the Moon from Fleetwood Mac live.
Okay. I'm excited.
Isn't it so good? Just that. Granted, it's not the whole thing. You don't get the whole build up.
Sure.
But
so I have an answer to my question.
Yeah.
Where is this Lindsey Buckingham on this album? That was some straight up fire there at the end with the guitar licks. Where is this guy? Like, why is it so restrained on this album? Why are you playing in a bathroom? Get out of the bathroom and just go crazy for once.
This recording would be from 1980, so it's not long after after Tusk comes out.
Also, I noticed that we had we switched over to organ.
The organ.
Yeah, and it makes it the whole different dimension of sound.
Absolutely. And like, man, the use of organ is so great. It reminds me a lot of I'm So Afraid, which is another of their live hits, which is just sad and scared, and you read the organ and it's just everything. It's big. The organ is so really great on this version.
Is there a full version of Tusk that's just a live recording of just all the songs from that album in that order?
No.
Somebody's put together, because I would be interested in hearing every single one of these as a live song, because it's possible that with practice and the limitation of being on stage and the energy of a live audience, that a lot of the problems that I've had could go away, because you've got the energy and the raw versions of a live version.
Yeah. I mean, the only bummer about that idea is that some of these songs I don't think they did live.
Yeah.
I don't think Honey Hi they did live. Beautiful Child they did not do live contemporaneous, like that was in the 2010s. So I don't know if they did a version of Never Forget. Like some of these are like weird ones that never made it. Some of them have a couple, and I think all of the live versions generally are probably better in most cases. But I'm a sucker for their live stuff. All right, well, we're going to send you out here on this special version of Sisters of the Moon from Fleetwood Mac live. Thank you, Jeff.
Sisters